Alright, hey there guys, Angel DeGas here, aka JediRo95, coming at you guys with another video. In this video is going to be an NBA discussion video. I've been uploading a lot of Madden recently, and I still, at the time of this video recording, I don't know if I'm going to release it, have a little bit more of my underrated and overrated ability series coming, so do keep an eye out for that. But in this video, I want to talk about something that, again, this is something I've had on my mind for a little bit, but I just keep putting it off because I never really had a want to make a video about this. But in this video, I want to talk about busts, and more specifically, I want to talk about the definition. The question? What is a NBA bust? Now, a lot of people have varying definitions of a bust, but the most basic concept is performing well below your draft expectations. Now, little disclaimer, before we get started, I don't care for young players. I don't get invested in young players. I don't really waste my time with them waste my time is a little bit of a strong word, but I don't necessarily, like, buy into their hype when they come out of college and high school and wherever else, because I'm of the mindset that, like, yeah, you did it against non-professional, high-quality NBA players. If you can replicate your play in the NBA, I'll buy into you. I'll see what you can bring to the table, and I'll actually pay attention to what you're doing. But, you know, other than that, I genuinely don't give a fuck about what these young players in question are doing, and I've had that mentality for years now. So that's just one of the reasons I just don't care for college basketball or like Euro League and shit like that. But a lot of people, do. And a lot of people invest their time into these young players. And then later on, in about a few years, that's a backcourt violation, Bradley Beal. Later on in a few years, if they perform well below their expectations, obviously people are going to start to label them a bust. But the question I always ask is, does it really, can you really define is the definition of bust a concrete physical thing that has a physical definition? Like, there are many cases throughout NBA history, gentlemen, where you have a player that is labeled a bust, but when you sit back and look at what happened to the poor guy, you realize that, is it really fair to call him a bust? Now, the first one that immediately comes to mind for me is Greg Oden. Now, Greg Oden was hyped to the moon and was viewed as the clear-cut pick in the 2007, 2008, the year Kevin Durant was drafted. One of those two. He was viewed as the clear-cut best pick in the 2007 or 2008 draft, whichever one it was. I think it was 2007. He was viewed as the clear-cut top pick. Now, granted, it was rightfully earned in some regards, although there have been some news articles saying that he actually had one leg bigger than the other, so of course it was going to affect his mobility in some capacity. But people are so quick to label him as a bust now because he never performed up to expectations, and I'm starting to think, like, is that really fair to him? Because I'm looking at it, and I'm starting to think, like, he was injured basically every other month, it seemed. Like, he never got the chance to consistently get game reps and full-on scrimmage time in to develop his skills to where he could have been the impact player or the superstar that a lot of people thought he was going to be. A lot of people, had high hopes for him. But he never did develop into that because of the fact that he just genuinely was unable to stay healthy. So that's a big person that I tend to look at and say, he's not really a bust. He just never got the chance to really be consistent and play all that much. But we're looking at players now, other players, and even young players in today's NBA, like, for example, Zion. I saw someone today, and even Rusty Buckets put out a video reacting to his hot takes reacting to hot takes, and one person legitimately said that Zion is a bust. Now, do I agree with that? No, I really don't. I think it's way, way too early to sit there and say that a player is a bust, even though they've been in the NBA for like 2 years. And that's another problem I have with the NBA community. Can we please stop being so quick to label players a bust? Can we please stop doing that? Some players take time to develop. Look at guys like Kyle Lowry. Okay, yeah, granted, he never had the big expectations he did, but ultimately, he was still a decently good player that a lot of teams were willing to give up on, and now he's a perennial all-star candidate caliber player in the Eastern Conference. You know, even someone like D'Angelo Russell, who's probably the biggest example, or Brandon Ingram that you're seeing on the screen right now. Both men were potentially viewed as busts because they couldn't figure it out and they couldn't put their skill set into production that led to meaningful play. But now, both men in question are legit all-star caliber players in the respective conferences, or in this case, the West, that genuinely can be a top player, a top tier quality, top 25 to 30 player in the association in this instance. Like Brandon Ingram legit won most improved player last year by taking that big leap that a lot of people thought he was going to take once he was removed off the lake, once he was traded from the Lakers to the Pelicans. People thought he was going to break out and this was his time, and he did. And the same with D'Angelo Russell. You know, it took him a couple of years to put it together. It took him a little bit, but he finally got it together. He put what he had in his repertoire and his skill set into one place, and he managed to be productive. And now, granted, he's in Minnesota, which is unfortunate, but even then, he's still a good player. You know, he's not a garbage player. He's not, and at that point, like, you can legitimately say that those people that thought he was going to be a bust a couple of years ago now look really silly for saying that. So, these two players are the biggest cases for me to describe why I think the term bust needs to stop being thrown around so loosely in the community. You know, but players that genuinely deserve the bust label, and this is going to be hard for me to say, one player that I think genuinely deserves it is Lonzo Ball. I think it is time we labeled him a bust. I was one of those people that gave him some time. Okay, a lot of people were saying he was a bust because that's what people do, and like I was talking about earlier. But I was sitting there like, you know what? He's a young player. Give him time. Let him develop. But now we're at a point where we got to start saying to ourselves, how much more time do you need to put it together? And granted, Alvin Gentry's system and the way he operates for coaching is not very good. Like Stan Van Gundy still is stuck in 2009. I don't know what he's doing, but he's still acting like you have to win. The only way you can consistently win games is by being a heavy inside scoring team. No, you can't do that anymore. This isn't 2009. This isn't even 2012 anymore, Stan Van Gundy. You have to accept the fact that the game has changed and that the times have changed, and now three-point shooting is king. Spacing is king. Ball and player movement is king in this league. Like, look at the San Antonio Spurs. They didn't adjust until this year, and now they're a playoff team right now. And shout out to DeMar DeRozan as a side note in this video. He has taken he has embraced the three-point shot fantastically when he was reluctant to even shoot the damn things in previous years. But now he's ultimately shooting more threes, and therefore, in and of itself, he is now much more efficient of a scorer. He's much more prolific of a scorer, much more dangerous, and all in all, the Spurs are more of a much better team while embracing the three-point shot. Anyways, side note there. Back to Lonzo. It's time to label him a bust. Period. Another person is Andrew Wiggins. I know a lot of people have come around to the fact that he is a bust and he is performing well below expectations. But jog your memory and mind back to when the Timberwolves got Jimmy Butler. That's what I'm trying to remember. Jog your mind back, gentlemen, to when the Timberwolves got Jimmy Butler. Okay? People were starting to lower the expectations for him to the point where it was ultimately disrespectful to how much expectations were not placed upon him. And a lot of people were trying to say that he's not a bust, he's just in a bad situation, he's just, he has to, all this excuses. And now we're at a point where, like, how much more time do you need? Again, same with Lonzo. How much more time do you need to be considered the expectations that you had? So, but anyways, we need to calm down with our labeling of people who are busts, and we also need to define the term bust. My definition of a bust is, excluding injuries, you are a player who did not perform up to expectations that was placed upon you when you came out of the high school, or you came out of the draft or EuroLeague. Okay? These are things that I would consider a bust. I don't include injuries because, again, you have a situation like Greg Oden, or even guys like, or even not even just a player, a duo like Ralph Sampson and Hakeem Olajuwon. Granted, they could have been one of the greatest, if not the greatest duo of all time, but unfortunately, injuries just never saw to it. So, that's just my thoughts on this whole bust label, and the fact that I just think that we need to calm down with that term. But please let me know in the comment section below if you agree or disagree with anything I just said. I think this is going to be a conversation I think we need to have and we need to discuss more about. But with that being said, guys, I hope you guys did enjoy. And with that, I'll see you in the next video. I'm out. Peace.